Let's take a trip to Transylvania for this one. Welcome to WWH. My name is Andrew Dreamer. We have another action-packed show in store for you today. Before we get started, let's take care of some housekeeping. If you're new here, welcome. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you stay up to date with all of our content. And go over to Patreon and consider becoming a member of the WWH Universe. There are a lot of cool perks and it would really help this channel continue to grow and improve. Moving on now. I know last time out I said that we would be looking at the Invisible Man, but you know what we say in our business, card is subject to change. That being said, today's macabre matter is the first foray into the depths of the Universal Monsters franchise. Let's look at Dracula. This film was released in 1931 and directed by Todd Browning for this English version. What you may not know is that there was also a Spanish version of the film made at the exact same time. They reused the sets with different director and actors. And I haven't seen that version of the film, but from what I've heard, it might actually be a little better. But our version of Dracula stars Bela Lugosi as the Crazy Count and Dwight Frye as Renfield. Bela Lugosi would go on to play several other characters in the Universal monster movies, but he'll always be best remembered as Count Dracula. This film was also adapted from a stage play that was adapted itself from Bram Stoker's original novel. Lugosi also played the title character in that Broadway version of this story. With all of that out of the way, let's head down to the ring to get this show underway. The film opens up with Renfield traveling through Transylvania on a business matter. His destination? Castle Dracula, where the locals warn him to avoid because they fear vampires inhabit the castle. He refuses to stay at their inn and asks his driver to take him to Borgo Pass, where he is then driven to the castle by Dracula's coach. Along the way, Renfield sticks his head out of the carriage to ask the driver to slow down. But he only finds that the driver has disappeared and only a bat is now leading the horses. Seems like a red flag to me, dude. Upon arrival, Renfield enters the castle where he's greeted by the charming but eccentric Count Dracula, who of course is a vampire just like the locals feared.
Listen to them. Children of the night. What music they make.
They discuss Dracula's intentions to lease Carfax Abbey in England and make preparations to travel there the next day. Dracula then hypnotizes Renfield to open a window, and he faints as bats appear and turn into Dracula's three wives. The trio closes in on him, but Dracula waves them off and attacks Renfield himself. They travel to England aboard a schooner called Vesta, where Renfield has become a lunatic and a slave to the Count, who is hiding in his coffin and feeding on the ship's crew along the way. Once they arrive in England, Renfield is found to be the only person on the ship, so he is sent to Dr. Seward's sanatorium adjoining Carfax Abbey. At a London theater, Dracula meets Seward, who introduces his daughter Mina, her fiancé John Harker, and a family friend named Lucy Weston.
There are far worse things, waiting man, than death.
Lucy is fascinated by the Transylvanian Count. That night, Dracula enters her room and feasts on her blood as she sleeps. She unfortunately dies the next day after a series of blood transfusions. Renfield, still descending deeper into insanity, eats flies and spiders. Throw in some worms and he's basically the boogeyman. Professor Van Helsing then arrives to analyze Renfield's blood. He begins talking about vampires, and that afternoon Renfield begs Seward to send him away, saying that his cries throughout the night may disturb Mina's dreams. Dracula calls out to Renfield through his wolf howl, and Renfield becomes disturbed by Van Helsing showing him wolfsbane, which is used as a protection against vampires. And yes, in this version of the story, vampires can turn into wolves as well as bats. That idea would be dropped after this film, however. Dracula then visits Mina in her room while she sleeps and bites her. The next evening, he visits the house again, where Van Helsing and Harker notice that he doesn't have a reflection in a mirror. They point this out to the Drac Man, causing him to destroy the mirror and leave. This raucous revelation tells Van Helsing that Dracula is the vampire that's behind all of the recent tragedies. Mina leaves her room and runs into Dracula in the garden, where he attacks her. She is discovered by the maid, and later Harker wants to take her to London to keep her safe, but is convinced to leave her with Van Helsing. The future vampire hunter then orders Nurse Biggs to take care of her while she sleeps and to, under no circumstances, remove the wolf's bane from around her neck. Renfield then escapes from his cell and listens to the men who are still discussing vampires. Before he's returned to his cell, he tells them that Dracula promised him thousands of rats full of blood and life in return for entry into the sanatorium. Dracula then enters Seward's parlor and claims that Mina now belongs to him, which is ridiculous. He also urges Van Helsing to return to his home country, but of course he refuses and vows to excavate all of Carfax Abbey to destroy Dracula.
And I will have Carfax Abbey torn down stone by stone, excavated a mile around. I will find your earth box.
Dracula attempts to hypnotize Van Helsing, but his resolve is too strong for it to work. Dracula then lunges at his enemy, but is met by a crucifix, causing him to retreat.
Indeed.
Harker visits Mina on the terrace, where she speaks to him about how she loves nights and the fog. A bat flies above them and squeaks something to Mina, and she then attacks her fiancé, but Van Helsing and Seward save him from death. Mina then confesses what Dracula has done to her and tells Harker that their love is over. Dracula hypnotizes Nurse Briggs into removing the wolfsbane from Mina's neck and to open the windows. Van Helsing and Harker see Renfield heading for Carfax Abbey, and when they arrive, they see Mina with Dracula. When Harker yells to Mina, Dracula thinks that Renfield has betrayed him for some reason and just kills him. The two men hunt Dracula and know that he must sleep in his coffin during the daytime, and the sun is rising soon. So Van Helsing makes a wooden stake out of a piece of Dracula's coffin lid while Harker searches for his confused love. Van Helsing then impales Dracula through the heart, killing him, and his death causes Mina to return to normal.
Mina!
The monster dying was kind of just part of the blueprint for the early Universal movies, and though it does make for a nice little bow on all of the individual stories, I just find this ending to be a little lackluster. It's not horrible, but it just lacks a certain punch that I enjoy in my films. It just seemed a little too easy. Like, they had little to no opposition to killing Dracula, and they just stabbed him while he was asleep. I don't know, I guess I wanted more. But all in all, I enjoyed this film quite a bit. And there is a lot more to discuss when it comes to the pros and cons, but right now we do have to take a quick break, so stick around and we'll be right back with some more WWH action. If you're looking to save 20% off of your order from Redcon1.com, look no further, I have the perfect deal for you. All you have to do is use code AndrewDreamer when you're checking out at Redcon1.com, and you will save 20% off of your entire order. It's a really good deal, and they have very good products. I use them every day in my just everyday life and while I'm at the gym. So go get some pre-workout, get some protein, get some snacks, some t-shirts, anything that you could possibly want. I'm sure that they're going to have it. So go check out their website and consider getting you some supplements or clothing or anything, and use code AndrewDreamer to save 20% off when you're checking out. We're back now, and without wasting any more time, let's head right back down to the ring for the positives. My first positive is, of course, the runtime. This film clocks in at 85 minutes. It has a story to tell, and it doesn't really waste any time with that. And I've just got to say it now. Bela Lugosi is a legend. He truly brought this character to life. It's been rumored that he had to learn all of his lines phonetically, but he actually already spoke English well enough to learn his lines normally by the time they were filming this movie. And when he passed away, he was actually buried in one of the capes he wore during this film, which I think is pretty freaking cool. My next positive is the set design. From Dracula's castle to Carfax Abbey, it all looked phenomenal. And the performance from all of the actors just felt really believable to me. Everybody seemed like they were perfectly cast in this movie. I also think that the script was well written, which I think wasn't always the case back then. I mean, they were still trying to figure out how the proper way is to put things on screen. So this script was it was refreshing to see them actually put enough care and effort into it to make it work this well. Let me know down in the comments what you like about Dracula, and it's time to switch gears and look at the negatives now. My first negative is the ending. I already mentioned it, but it really is kind of just abrupt. Like I said before, the whole thing seemed a little too easy. I just feel like there should have been a final fight or something, instead of Dracula just retreating and dying without a fight at all. I know it makes sense in the context because of the sunlight and all that stuff, but it still bothers me. And while the script is well written, the film does get a little boring at some points. It's not too bad, but there are just some moments where you feel the lull and you just wait for the next big moment. And honestly, I feel like the third act could have been more drawn out, more action-filled maybe. That ties into the first negative that I mentioned, but I'm mentioning it again. That's basically all that I have to really say negative about Dracula, but if you think that I left something out, please let me know. I really would like to know. Like I said, this is a very enjoyable movie and also one of the most important films ever made in my opinion. I don't think that can be overstated. Even if you don't particularly care for this movie, you have to at least respect the legacy that it created. I mean, Dracula has been recreated, remade, parodied, and utilized in every way possible. And that doesn't happen very often, so that's kind of my spiel on that. And if you haven't seen it, go check it out, especially if you like vampire movies or these old monster movies. It's definitely worth it. But now it is time to wrap up the show. Thank you for being here with us today. Next time, we are going to be taking a look at the Wolfman. So keep an eye out for that video coming very soon. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done that. Leave a like and leave a comment down below. Also, consider supporting WWH on Patreon. The link is down in the description. It would really help us out a lot. And again, thank you for joining us here today, and we will be back very soon. But until then, my name is Andrew Dreamer, and this is Wrestling with Horror.